What happened? Can someone explain that to me? At least the Batman films had a gradual descent in quality. This franchise just took a nosedive off a cliff and into a ravine of awfulness. After watching this and noticing the downgrade from its predecessors in nearly every major aspect, I'm convinced that the only reason that director Richard Lester delivered a good movie in Superman 2 was because he already had numerous assets and talent carried over from the original film. This movie, on the other hand, seems constantly preoccupied with finding a cheap joke in every single scene rather than telling a compelling story. Anyone who believes otherwise need only look at the casting of Richard Pryor, who plays goofy Gus Gorman, an unemployed screwball who decides to embezzle money using an uncanny talent for computer programming. After CEO Ross Webster discovers this, he ropes Gorman into helping him further his own business. Meanwhile, Clark Kent returns to Smallville for his high school reunion and begins to get reacquainted with childhood friend Lana Lang. However, in an effort to get Superman out of the way, Webster has Gorman hack into a satellite to scan for pieces of kryptonite, Superman's weakness, in space and see which substances it's comprised of. Unfortunately, they replace an unknown ingredient with tar, which causes the Man of Steel to become self-absorbed and less righteous, thus freeing the business partners to further their exploits through the sheer power of computers. First of all, Pryor is just blatantly miscast. Taking out the fact that the computers in this movie can do whatever outlandish thing the script says they can, does this really look like the type of guy who would possess extensive knowledge of computer programming and hacking? That wouldn't be such an issue if the character wasn't written as one of the most annoying people I've ever seen. At one point he even says, "I just don't believe a man can fly." Richard Pryor is respected as one of the comedic geniuses of his time, but the plethora of stupid faces and dim-witted antics he pulls in this movie honestly makes you think that he's just some talentless homeless guy that they just pulled off the street. I wouldn't be focusing on him so much if he wasn't the main character, but he gets more screen time than the title character. Christopher Reeve is still great, but he is constantly marginalized for the sake of bad joke after bad joke. Admittedly, it is interesting to see him play a darker version of Superman and deal with what essentially becomes a split personality, but the tonal shifts and shortage of focus really make it a case of too little too late. It's a good idea, but we don't get to see it developed at all here, and the supposedly irresponsible acts that he does commit just come off as mildly inconvenient. He blows out the Olympic torch. Whenever we cut back to Superman after watching one of Pryor's stupid sketches, he's at a completely different stage of his deterioration. Additionally, what would have given this movie a real emotional core would have been if they had actually used the character of Lana Lang. Annette O'Toole does a good job with what she's given, but imagine if Superman's darker demeanor also affected his role as Clark Kent, and Lana, whom he has known since childhood, had to serve as his emotional anchor point. Instead, her character arc revolves around whether or not she should move to Metropolis. What a fitting metaphor for the rest of the movie, as it takes a concept that should have been interesting and robs it of any meaningful development in favor of a big-budget sketch show starring Richard Pryor and Robert Vaughn. The story is weak, the characters are weak, the villains are non-threatening and irritating, the comedy is grating, and the lighthearted charm of the first two films is replaced with an embarrassing campiness. Screw this movie.